you constantly have a battle in your head between good and bad food and feeling on the wagon, off the wagon, I want to share something with you that we've used with many clients now to stop that mindset in its tracks. I'm Mandy, I'm the clinical nutritionist at the Body Reset program, and I can tell you from experience, having worked with thousands of clients now, that mentality of labeling foods good or bad is a recipe for getting you stuck in a cycle of binging, restricting, guilt, and shame. What I want to take you through is a concept that I shared with our clients in Body Reset just earlier this week, which is basically a full reframe of that belief that there is a good and a bad side to foods. I want you to understand this, I guess. It comes from diet culture, this belief that there are good or bad foods. With the low fat era, anything that was high fat is labeled bad. Since we've had kind of this boom in, keto research and low carbohydrate stuff, now carbohydrates are the bad food. For a while, gluten-free food had a big heyday, and it didn't matter that it was packed full of also all sorts of other refined white starches. Somehow gluten-free food got this health halo, and anything that had gluten in was labeled bad. There's been so many things like this throughout the years where there's been foods that have been labeled good or labeled bad based on someone's opinion about one of its ingredients. And none of that actually has anything to do with what's going on for you and your body. And so we have this belief, and it's very subtle. It can show up in micro ways of, I won't eat a Tim Tam, but I will eat an apple because an apple is quote unquote good. But it can show up in more macro ways as well, where we can have guilt around going to eat out, or we can have guilt because we didn't eat the food that was maybe in the menu plan that we got from someone who said this would help us lose weight. We can have all of these kind of very subtle infiltrations of the belief that there is this good or bad side to food that can really, really mess with your mind. It takes a lot of mental energy kind of constantly weighing these up, and then it perpetuates this kind of guilt, shame, failure that can occur because you can't ever stick to the perfect food plan. Or maybe you can, but you feel this, this stress response from constantly kind of having to meet this standard that's based on someone else's opinions about food. And I think it's really important, if we can reframe this, we can look at food through the lens of what's actually going to be helpful for us, because it probably has nothing to do with whether the food is good or bad in someone else's estimation. But I do want to offer a little bit of a perspective here, because if you completely get rid of all the rules when it comes to food and, kind of go fully intuitive with this, of just eat what you feel and eat what makes you happy and all of that, then it's not going to be particularly helpful for helping you to achieve, optimal health, optimal weight loss, optimal aging, looking after your muscle mass, and all those beautiful things that we want as we get older. So there does need to be some kind of boundaries and construct to work in when it comes to food choices. But I think that the binary system of good or bad, which is creating two forces that are always opposing each other, really doesn't help anyone. So what I want to offer you here, and what I talk through with our clients on Monday, is a reframe that is, what if we take away the good or bad and we look at food as just two things? Food is energy and food is information. And whether the food is beneficial for you or not is determined by your need for those two things. So I want to quickly break down what those two things are for you so that you can kind of play this through with your own food choices. And I will highlight here that it does create potentially a gap where you understand, there's some information that I don't understand here, and there's an opportunity to learn. And that's also a beautiful thing. I think on any health and wellness journey, it's good to have that forward pulling feeling of there's more that I need to uncover, there's more that I need to test and work out for myself, and that's actually okay too. So let's break this up. Energy. Food energy is essentially the caloric value of food, but also the macro split of food. And I'd say the example here is maybe your baseline metabolic rate and your activity levels demands that you eat about 2,000 calories a day. If you were to get all of that purely from fat, you would technically meet your energy needs, but you wouldn't feel very good with it. You wouldn't feel particularly good for a very long time if that's all you did. So energy is not just the caloric amount of food, but also the macro spread of it. Are you meeting your protein needs and your fat needs and those sorts of things? So energy is very simple, essentially the calories and the macros that the food contains. And it's going to be very different for individual foods. The information part's a little bit more nuanced. There's a couple of layers to this. When you eat something, you are not just eating calories and you're not just eating macros, you're eating a whole lot of nutrients as well. For example, in a piece of steak, you're getting protein, you're getting some fats, you're getting very minimal carbohydrates, but you're also getting a lot of B12, you're getting some selenium, you're getting some zinc. So you're getting these micronutrients as well. And those micronutrients are cofactors for cellular processes in your body. That means they are information for your cells to tell your cells how to function. And we all have a need for a certain amount of these micronutrients. And so the food you're eating is either providing that or not. If you're not providing that, certain cellular processes in your body will not be functioning optimally, and therefore you will not be feeling optimal. So food is information in the sense that it is supplying these things that allow optimal cellular processes to happen. Another part of the information is what is your body's hormonal response to that food. For example, if you eat something that is quite high carbohydrate, you will get an insulin response, because as your blood sugar goes up, your brain will get the message to tell your pancreas to produce insulin to deal with the blood sugar. So it's information. When you eat a piece of steak, you don't get that insulin rise. Your body's not getting told to do that thing because it doesn't need to, because there's not glucose coming in. Whereas if you eat, for example, a Tim Tam or a piece of custard square, you're going to get that message. So everything that you eat is getting in there and actually telling your body certain things based on the way your body is responding to that food. So it's not just a case of, well, calories are all created equal, because they all have a different internal message that they're giving to our body. And another part here that is, I guess, even a little bit more nuanced than that is the psychological, emotional information that food gives us. I grew up in a farming background. We ate a lot of mutton roasts, and for me, that's something that we had on a semi-regular basis, and it is comfort food for me. So emotionally, that food gives me a lot of information, where for someone else that's not going to be the case. But someone else might hate that food, and you will likely have foods like this as well, where when you eat them, you get an emotional response from those food, and it's giving your body information. And here's the thing, is if you're always taking away every single thing have eaten in your past or that you enjoy, then you're taking away a lot of information that you were once getting from food as well. And maybe you're eating really great things, but there's no joy in there, and that's a problem from a health perspective in the long run as well, because you're probably not going to stick to it. So kind of understanding that the food you eat is energy, it is a macro split that's important, but it's also all of these layers of information, and you need to understand your body's need for these certain things. Now at this point I realize you could be saying, well, Mandy, this is way harder than just saying, well, Tim Tams are bad and a piece of steak is good. And I do get that, and that's where I say there's this opportunity to learn more and truly understand what's going on in your body. Because if I say to you, well, you need to look at the food through the energy information scenario and what your body really needs, and you're like, well, I don't know, then that's where that opportunity to learn is. How much protein do you need to be getting in? How many calories do you need based on your age, stage, body, energy, activity levels in order to feel really good and maintain your weight or build muscle or lose weight or whatever you're looking at doing? How much do you need? If you don't know that stuff, that is an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to understand what food provides you so that you can use the food to live your best life. I've talked to so many people who have for years and years have dieted, or maybe even athletes who have been competitive for years and years, but when you talk to them about their food, they really don't understand their needs. They don't know their protein targets. They don't know how much food they need to eat on a daily basis in order to meet their caloric expenditure. They just don't have a good understanding of food. And I think we're shortchanging ourselves when we don't really understand what the food that we're eating is giving to us. So the opportunity here is, if you don't know, dig into your food a little bit more. Pay attention to how you feel, and especially on that kind of emotional and internal awareness level. If you eat something and it's quote unquote a good food, but you don't feel good after it, then maybe that's information that that food is not the best food for you. So paying attention to what response are you getting in your body from that food, and are you meeting your biological needs? And using the system really gives a way just to cut through the noise in a way. You can go past everyone else's opinions and be like, what does my body need in order to function well in the age and stage that I'm at now with the goals that I've got, right? And what I want to do here is I want to offer an opportunity to go a little bit deeper into this, because a while ago Ollie did a training on this relationship with food, because there's the practical numbers aspect of it, but there's also that psychological kind of emotional context to food as well, and just exploring that a little bit further. So I'm going to link that below, because it'll be a really nice follow on from this if you want to understand this a little bit more. But I hope that was helpful. I hope that kind of offers you a little bit of a reframe to entirely stop the good or bad in its tracks and say, what do I need on an energy level, on a macro level, and then on an information level, to not just get through the day, but get through the day feeling awesome and being able to do the cool things that you want to do. So hope that was helpful. Hope it was inspiring. Leave me a comment below if you have any, and I'll see you next time. Bye.